Which brand has lost you as a customer? Thrifty car rental. Got a car with problems I noticed on my drive from the airport. At the same time my dad was in hospice and they weren't sure how long he would be alive. Thrifty wouldn't do anything to help me. Told me to return the car and exchange it, and they would charge me for the pleasure. I tried to explain my situation. Airport was 2 hours away. Dad's dying. Can I have AAA tow it back to them or something? No. I ended up renting a second car in my hometown while he was dying and paid for the full 2 weeks renting one car that worked and one from Thrifty. Complained to corporate and their response was basically, maybe you shouldn't have prioritized your dad's dying over a rental car. Duck Thrifty. Sprint. My first cell phone was Sprint. Had them for years. Then they decided to charge me twice a month for one phone. Called to get it fixed. And nothing. I switched to Atent and we cancelled Sprint. Kept same number though. Sprint kept charging me after cancelling and tried to sue me for not paying. Even though I had record of the cancellation. Got them to drop those charges but then sued me for not paying the late fees for those payments I didn't pay after I cancelled. Kat Von D Cosmetics lost me when she said she won't vaccinate her kid. British Airways. I lived abroad. My mum came to visit. 3 days into her trip my dad died and we had to fly to UK immediately. I needed to change the date of her return flight to that day and buy one new ticket for myself. My stipulations were we both need to be on the same plane ASAP. They booked my seat first. Said there was only business class available, which I agreed to. Then after taking payment said there were no seats for my mum so she's on a different flight later in the day. Also my seat was non-refundable as it was less than 24 hours until the flight. You accrued 3k out of pocket. I immediately called Virgin Atlantic. Explained. They said get to the airport ASAP and we'll sort it out. They met us at the check-in desk. Took our passports and luggage while we waited at a cafe. Then walked us through the airport and security, right to the door of the plane. From phone to plane seat in 3 hours. I just don't know how I was so failed by one, and so welcomed and helped by the other. I'll never set foot on a BA plane. Tim Hortons. Prices keep rising and quality is absoluted now. DirecTV. Got diagnosed with leukemia. They spent the first month figuring out how to fire me. Second month they insisted they never received any documentation from my physician. Even when I was on the phone with a nursing assistant as she faxed the information to them. Walked into the office one day. They gave me a box and walked me out because I hadn't provided the necessary documentation within 30 days. Duck DirecTV. Comcast. Despite their itchy service I was willing to ray up with them if they would keep the initial rate I had been paying the previous 2 years. They declined and when asked if they wanted some of my money or none of my money they boldly told me that none of my money was the best option for them. Normal businesses can't survive with that kind of disrespect and disregard for their customers. They are 100% a monopoly. Logan's Roadhouse. Went to one a decade ago and got a buffalo chicken sandwich. It was raw in the middle. I told the server and her response was yeah. It's usually a safer bet to get the chicken strips. Left right then and won't go back. Beers. When you can't even call it ice cream because there's not enough actual cream. And it must be called frozen dairy dessert. SiriusXM. I've never been spammed more by a company in my life after cancelling my subscription. Seriously, like 30 letters and 10 calls in 6 months even after picking up those calls and telling them to remove me from their lead list. Avast. I was happy for the most part, but one day I noticed my browser changed to Avast one, without me ever installing it, accepting it or even being notified that said browser is being added to the package. When I install I always go for manual options so I can take off unwanted crap. This just happened with one of the updates. So, no thanks Avast. You can go duck yourself now. Expedia. They've screwed me several times now and their customer service straight up lies and is designed to be so frustrating you give up. Grubhub. I placed an order for sushi to be delivered one night a couple of months ago and settled into wait. Got a call from the restaurant. No driver had showed up. And my food had been waiting to be delivered for like half an hour. Then I find out my food's going to be another hour or hour and a half behind. Grubhub issues me a $10 credit. Whatever. The restaurant calls me back, and the poor woman is trying to figure out if she can drive my order over herself, because she knows this is unacceptable and she feels really bad about all this. The driver finally picks up my food, so I start tracking him on GPS. He starts driving away from me, knowing that I'd been waiting 2 hours for my food. My ducking sushi. Mind you, he decided that other people's deliveries were more important than mine. Then, when he delivered my food, he told me that 6 drivers before him had refused to take my delivery. The final topping on this, it's Sunday, my sushi was warm, so I immediately contacted customer support. Not once did they apologize. Not once did they say that this kind of treatment of a customer was unacceptable. I told them that my sushi was warm when it arrived. They offered me a $10 credit. I'm sorry, but if you deliver me food that has me questioning its safety, shouldn't you be refunding me the cost of the meal plus $5 delivery fee? Especially after I've already found out 6 of your drivers couldn't be asked to take a delivery for ducking miles? Well, our drivers are contractors, so they're allowed to refuse deliveries. If you'd like, I can have a manager contact you. Please do. And you don't think it's worth incentivizing your drivers in some way so that this kind of it doesn't happen? Surprise, surprise. Manager never contacted me. I deleted my info, then the app, and I tell people not to bother with Grubhub. They take no responsibility when something goes wrong. Apparently I'm still way more upset over this than I realize. That sushi restaurant has a customer for life, though, for being willing to try to get me my food despite Grubhub's duckery. Obligatory thanks for the gold edit. Thank you so much. My very first. It's incredibly validating to find out I'm not alone in my frustration. Adobe OE 130 for Lightroom with upgrade to a new version every 1-2 years. Costing OE 70 was a very fair deal for hobby photographers. Buy the software and then buy every other upgrade, or not, and use it forever. But no, Adobe had to switch everything to their subscription model, so now you pay OE 12 per month to keep using the software. The perpetual license version hasn't received feature updates in some time, and recently it got its last camera lens support update. It's now no longer being supported. I'll keep using the software as long as I have a camera lens that is supported and as long as it's not outdated. But once there's a need to update, I will look for something that's not made by Adobe. The C-Feed channel once they rebranded to Sci-Fi. For one thing, that's just a stupid name. For another, they haven't put out much in the way of quality science fiction television in years, and the few things they did, like The Expanse, they half-assed. Paddy Power held my money hostage 4 weeks following a big win because apparently my account wasn't correctly verified. This hadn't stopped them taking my money for 6 years until that win. Edit. It seems like this is common across a number of betting sites. If this happens to you, then persistence pays off and you can usually get your money back eventually if you keep hassling them. Allstate. I was at fault in an auto accident. I was distracted thinking about a friend who was near death and rear-ended someone. No injuries, but my truck did a lot of damage to the other car. The young man who owned it was very nice. I felt awful, especially when it was clear his car was not drivable and possibly rottled. I assured him I was well insured and called my agent to verify he would get a rental until the claim was settled. I told the police and the apostate claims debt it was 100% my fault. I felt certain the young man would be taken care of. Wrong. About 6 weeks later he called me. He said he hated to bother me, but Allstate was being very difficult. He only had the rental for a week, but they waited 3 weeks to inspect his car and make him an offer. They said he was partially responsible, so they were only going to give him half the value of his car, which was totaled. He couldn't begin to get a comparable replacement for what he was offered. I spent a week arguing with the claim debt with no results. He tried to file with his carrier for underinsured motorist coverage, but my limit of liability is $250,000, so I am not underinsured. My husband and I paid him a fair amount for his car plus $1,000 for all the hassle, and then cancelled every line of business we had with apostate: auto, home, boat, motorcycle, and commercial. Our annual premiums are over $30,000. And State Farm has our business now. But I am still furious at how they treated this kid. If we weren't fortunate enough to have taken care of this out of pocket, this Gus would have been royally screwed. Great young man with a wife and baby, working to become a licensed electrician. Just theme type of person you want to it on, right? Care.com. I had 4 babysitters through Care.com. The first turned out to be a paranoid schizophrenic that went off her meds and kidnapped her own child from the father to perform an exorcism on the demon. Second stole from my house every time she was there. Third ended up knowing and hanging out with one of my family members who was a very well-known meth heroin dealer. Fourth would not bring my kid back when she was supposed to. Ended up having to travel miles away to get her. When I tried to cancel my Care.com account, they would repeatedly hang up on me for days. I called constantly trying to cancel my account. Sent emails. Sent letters through the mail. Finally they said they cancelled it. Then proceeded to continue to charge me for 4 months. I got them to stop by closing my account and reporting them for fraud. Duck you. Care.com. Edited to add, here's the news report about the first one. Well, not really a brand, but a store. Kohl's can suck my left nut. Their business model is atrocious to me. They seem to mark up every product in the store, like 100%, and then throw Kohl's cash and discounts at you to make it seem like you're saving money. But at the end of the day you're spending just as much as if you just went somewhere else. It seems like that store has everything perpetually 75% off and they're still making boatloads of money. How do people not connect the dots? Edit. It has occurred to me that I care so little for the store that I am consistently spelling it wrong. I'm not changing it. I'm in too deep. Wells Fargo. I had the same account since I was 10. It started as my hometown bank, but after many buyouts Wells took over. Kept them for a long time, but after all the shot came out of their predatory practices, I closed all my accounts and will never look back. Ducking DR. Scholl's shoes. 20 years ago they were great if you were on your feet a lot. Now they are sold at Walmart and are absolute garbage. And I'm pretty sure he's not a real doctor. I have 3 dogs. If your company airs a commercial with a doorbell sound during the ad, I don't buy from you. Boston Pizza. Worked for them in 2002 and I still haven't forgiven them. Also, they microwave their nachos. I try really hard to avoid Walmart, but I live in small town America and sometimes I can't avoid it. I don't like how they treat their employees, but mostly it's because the tire and oil change manager at my Walmart is a chauvinistic, loathsome carbuncle of a human being. Any brand with a loud, auto-playing advertisement that takes a large portion of the screen, or uses the "here is the link you wanted." Whoops, the page just shifted up and you clicked on our ad. Thanks for the business tactic. Masses. I worked as the visual merchandiser at Masses for a few years. In 2016 a large, heavy, wooden shelf fell out of the wall, the bracket broke, and landed on my neck, shoulder, and back. I was obviously injured. We're talking 40 plus lbs crushing down onto my spine here, and went to their doctor. Even though the doctor didn't want me lifting, pushing, pulling anything over 10 pounds. Masses still made me work, lift heavy mannequins, climb ladders, etc. They flat told me that they didn't give a shit that my restrictions say to basically not use my right arm. The instructions didn't say don't fold XL towels for 5 hours, so I had to do what they say. I was miserable. I finally had surgery number 1 on my shoulder 5 months later. The surgeon said he was flabbergasted at how ducked up my shoulder was, that it was way worse than he was expecting, and he didn't know how I was able to work on it. Only my muscles were holding my arm in place. My tendons and cartilage and labrum were shot. After surgery I still wasn't better. I had been telling them from the beginning that my neck and head hurt, but they wouldn't allow my doctors to check it. Over a year later Masses let me have a cervical MRI, and guess what? Ducked up blown discs in my neck, compressing on my nerves. I have nerve damage and will need a neck fusion surgery to fix it. They found bone spurs in my lower back from the crush. My entire damn spine hurts. 24/7. On top of all of that, Masses has been fighting every single tiny thing in court, even though it's clear as day what's wrong with me on my scans. Even though all the doctors say the same thing is wrong with me independently. Even though my story has never changed. They refuse to allow me to see pain doctors. Refuse to pay for medication. So far over $3k out of pocket. Refuse to allow me to have physical therapy. I got frozen shoulder after my surgery number 1 because they refused to allow me to go to PT for over a month after the surgeon said I needed to begin. At our last court hearing, the judge flat told them that they are hindering my recovery and they better get it together or he would get them together. I've lost my business, my independence. I had to move back in with my parents. I can't even wash my own hair. Some of my friends, my strength, and my mental health. I have depression, a right arm, dominant hand, BTW, with nerve damage and permanent restrictions, no lifting, pushing, pulling over 10 pounds, no reaching overhead, shaky hands from the nerve damage, compressed nerve and herniated discs in my neck that are dangerously close to my spinal cord, fractured facets in cervical and, we are expecting, lumbar, and a brain injury. I'm in chronic pain all the time. I never thought they would betray me in this way. It's so bad that even my doctors and lawyers are saying they've never seen a company fight so personally. They are self-insured, so it's my adjuster making all the decisions to make sure I don't get treatment. Please don't shop masses. They don't give a flying duck that I almost died on the job with them. They don't give a single it that I've suffered permanent damage that will affect me for my entire life. It would have been so much cheaper for them to have just paid for the treatment my doctors all day I need, but instead they choose to fight every step of the way. I mean, come on guys. When the judge tells you to get your it together and just ducking treat the patient, maybe you need to rethink your itty malicious plan. Ugh. Edit. Holy it. Gold. I know this is cliche to say, but seriously, thank you so much, anonymous redditor. I genuinely thought I was venting to the wind when I wrote this and that no one would really see it. And to be gilded absolutely warms my heart. My jaw literally dropped. Thank you again. And thank you so much to everyone who has been commenting and messaging and chatting with me about it. I have never felt so comforted and lifted up in my life. You all have boosted my confidence about this and my self-esteem more than you will ever know. Denny's. 40 minutes for cold food. 20 after we finished eating to get the check. 4 people with 4 separate checks. And every ticket had our collective mismatched food. 15 minutes for the manager to fix it. Some of the stuff on the ticket we didn't even get. Waffle House is home. Fox. They cancelled The Last Man on Earth on a cliffhanger. Duck off. McDonald's. I know it has never been quality food, but at least it used to be cheaper than the other options. 2 weeks ago I stopped in and paid $8.50 for a breakfast sandwich. Small orange juice and an undercooked hash brown. Local bagel shop. Same ingredients. Better quality. Bigger portions. Final cost $7. Never again will I give them my money. Sears. Even their most expensive vacuum cleaners don't hold up under normal use. The one we bought couldn't suck cat hair from the furniture and quit after 1 year. Sears wouldn't warranty it. Infinity. My FX35 has herpes. Basically the glue they use in the dash is bad and it bubbles. Went to the dealer to buy a new car for wife. They saw it and said bring it back anytime, it's covered under warranty. That was the 20th of December. I call after the holidays on the 5th of January. Guess what? The warranty ended the 3rd of January. They called corporate to see if they could extend it, and while I was sitting filling out papers to buy a new car was told I was not a good enough customer to extend the warranty. Handed the phone to the sales rep and let him know why he lost a car sale. Walked out and became a named member in a class action lawsuit where they lost millions. Edit. Current state of my car. New link. Every brand that boasts about its J.D. Power Award for initial reliability to real people, not actors. Walmart. Now I shop at Kroger or Aldi's. Cable TV in general. I haven't had it in 7 years. I've been able to save money just using Netflix, Hulu and occasionally HBO. I've stopped banking with major banks. I keep all of my money and get all of my loans from a local credit union. Their rates are amazing. The account fees are non-existent. And I've never had better customer service in my life at any bank, major or minor. Don't reward the big banks. People. Arby's. My mom got a massive cockroach cooked into the bun. Thankfully it was found when she went to put on some kind of sauce. Refuse to ever eat there now. American Express. I don't remember why, but I'm good at holding a grudge. So many issues. Hidden charges. Straight up lying to me. I started paying for TV through them even though I've never spoken with anyone in their company regarding television, and also I don't own a television. I called them to correct it and they said that it would be weeks before it would get straightened out and that I can enjoy TV in the meantime. Maybe I would change my mind. No, I do not want TV, cancel this, and they put me on hold for over an hour before I hung up. Redialed and cancelled my services entirely. Internet and cell phone both. Cox was the only other option of ISP, and Google Fi is where I ended up for cellular. That is disgusting and I'll never consider their products or services again. I'm a sales rep for a pretty giant company. Not as big as that but certainly comparable, and the corporate office's #1 comment when it comes to customer issues is resolve the issue immediately in the favor of the customer regardless of fault or origin. Even if it's an error on the customer's part, we foot the bill and fix it and apologize that it happened. It's a little frustrating on my end sometimes because people sometimes game the system and abuse it, but it makes my job so much easier when we have a reputation of reliability. But I am positive that if we had no competition, this policy would have been dropped decades ago. eBay. Their buyer protections encourage rampant fraud and abuse. Electronics and vinyls in particular. Perfectly fine item will get a return requested when all of a sudden there's a scratch or defect that never existed before. Try and deny it, citing your multiple pictures and description. eBay says naduck you and snatches it from your PayPal. Not once have I heard of a dispute going in a seller's favor. You are forced to accept the return. Still owe them the final value fee, and you're paying for shipping back. Your PayPal account is now -$50. And your old computer or phone comes back with missing parts, or the vinyl you get back is something entirely different. Try and get eBay to take care of that. They'll say it's not their problem or require further proof. Excuse me? Do not use eBay. Ace Hardware. I bought copper pipe from them and didn't get a good look at it until I got home. They loaded it in my truck. It was all corroded and green with built up gunk. I call the store and talk to the owner and he immediately gets defensive, saying, "You're the only person who's ever complained about my copper. I have men who know their stuff who exclusively buy their copper from me." I assumed the emphasis on men was meant to be a jab at me being a woman. How could someone without a D have an opinion on the quality of his copper? I've never pulled the sexist card in my life, but I think this was sexism. My product is made in America. You're not going to find that anywhere else around here. I told him I could physically see it says product of Mexico stamped literally all over the piping. In the end, he refused a refund. Duck that guy. Kat Von D. Her vegan cruelty free makeup might be great product wise, but I'm not giving my money to an anti-vaxxer and anti-Semite. No thank you. Edit. Wrote from memory when I said husband. It was her ex-boyfriend. Sorry about that. But also she has done some anti-Semitic stuff herself. Told former employer to burn in hell. Jew bag. Called lipstick color selection. Nazi term. Previous boyfriend Jesse James is a neo-Nazi, not husband. Source. Also it's interesting that comments are only on the anti-Semitism stuff. Being an anti-vaxxer is also seriously bad. Lipton tea. I found I preferred Twinings. Kat Von D. You don't have to vaccinate your kids. Of course. Only the ones you want to stay alive. Enterprise. After they tried to tell my mom, who was dying of cancer at the time, that she'd somehow damaged the underside of their car, she hadn't, on one of her trips to and from CTCA, and then proceeded to make a fuss about it. Never going to give them a single ducking cent as long as I live, and I try to remember to flip off their local office every time I go past it. Edit. To be clear, the underside of the car was damaged the way they described. There's just no way that she could have done it, because she was driving it on smooth highways basically the whole way there and the whole way back. And of course, even if she did, she was dying at the time. We figured either they were lazy and didn't check it properly before renting it to us, just figured they might be able to get a payout out of us. We couldn't prove she wasn't responsible, since we hadn't thought to check it beforehand. Screw us for assuming basic competence on the part of these duckwits, and even if we had, she was in her 60s and again, dying of cancer. So it's not like she was going to get on her hands and knees and check the underside of her car in their unbelievably tiny parking lot right next to the busiest intersection in town. So, duck enterprise.